Strategy. I just want to welcome everyone. My name is DJ Ham. I am the chair of the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation. I want to thank you for being here. I am really excited for this evening. This is our annual grant share, a time for us to see all of the awesome things that our grantees have accomplished over the year with the grants that were given last year. I know I can speak on behalf of the board and saying that we really do look forward to this. We look forward to watching the videos later. These kind of keep us refreshed throughout the year, which is really cool to see. And it's really neat to hear how your idea of your grant has changed and evolved over the year as well. So even though you might have submitted a grant with something in mind, through your implementation of it and through your presentation, oftentimes you learn something as well, which helps you in the future, helps us in our grant making, helps the principals, the district, and yourselves, and ultimately the students, which is what this is all about. So I want to thank you all for being here. And what I'm going to do is turn it over to Lorraine. And Lorraine is going to run us through this evening's program. Thank you.
Thanks. That was DJ Ham, and he is our new chairman for the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation, doing the transition from Peter Levy, who is our past chairman for about 14 years, I think. My name is Lorraine Boyle, and it has been my privilege and pleasure to coordinate the grant arm of the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation for these last 14 years. And it's been so exciting to see all of the projects that have developed. We are now approaching having given $500,000 to the teachers in St. Louis Park to fund a dream that they had that would enhance the educational experiences of our students. So we are thrilled to have been that support, and we're delighted that the teachers took the initiative, wrote the grant, and are here tonight to celebrate that success. Before we get into that, I'd like to take a moment and ask that members of the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation please stand, both current and past. We are in a time of transition, and we have many new members and prospective board members, and we would encourage you to let us know if you know of someone that might have an interest in serving on the board. This is my final year. I am stepping down, but I want to make sure that you know who David Gaines is. David? David is going to be the new grant chair, so he is the one that has been receiving the new grant request and coordinating this wonderful celebration tonight. That was all David. We are now ready to begin our program. You may have up to 8 minutes, maybe 9. But if you see me do this, it means you need to wrap it up because the next person has to come up. The reason we watch the time carefully is those high school teachers have been rocking and rolling since 5:30 this morning. As many of our teachers have had a full day and they need to rush on home so they can get to bed and get up and do wonderful things with our students tomorrow. Therefore, we do pay attention to the time. It's my pleasure at this time to invite the high school math team up. Tina wrote the grant, and the committee reviewed it last year, and we're pleased to recommend it to the board who approved it. And the title of it is Chromebooks for the Math Department. Now, it's really important when you're up here that you talk directly into this little friendly microphone, because we are videotaping this and hope to use your story on our foundation website to help potential donors and others realize the wonderful ideas teachers have with just a bit of seed money. Tina.
Hi there, I'm Tina Bajan. This is my 13th year here at the high school, and last year I wrote the grant for the Chromebooks because as a math department we felt there was a need to put more technology into the classroom. So I just put together the slideshow. So we did receive the set of 35 Chromebooks in a nice laptop cart, and all of the teachers have been using it. We've been sharing, doing a bunch of different activities. So I thought that after I show some pictures that we would do one of the activities that I actually run in the classroom. So here's it in action. The other day we were introducing quadratics, and we did this program where quadratic is like a U-shaped graph. Will the basketball go in the hoop? So they were making predictions on will the basketball go in, and then using quadratics and math to figure out if it went in or not. So here's a few pictures of that. Culver only agreed to have his picture taken if he was staring at a picture of Mr. Metz. So that is that picture right there. All right, some student comments. I had this one student, he's not very motivated to do much, but when we had one assignment on the computer, he's like, see, Miss Bajan, I did it because it was on the computer. You should do more like that. I'm like, all right. We did a dot activity that was pretty cool for inequalities, and we also do some projects in math, and so it's nice to have the Chromebooks so the students can collaborate using different Chrome apps on the Chromebook. All right, so here is what I set the Chromebooks out for. We're going to do an activity that we do in class. It's called Polygraph. And what it is like the game Guess Who. So Guess Who, you get a board, you pick a person, and your partner picks a person, and you have to ask yes or no questions, and you have to guess what card they picked. So we did this for higher degree polynomials, but instead of doing that for this group, I picked a slightly easier one. We're going to look at shapes. So to do that, I think right now, most of them are at student.desmos.com already. You might have to share with a neighbor. So when the students have their Chromebooks, they'll say, all right, log in. So here's the activity we're going to do today. So you type in the code JN63. And then once you do that, you can continue without signing in, and you can put your name. And so I'll have the kids put their names so I can see what they're doing. And what it's good for is introducing a topic. Students can only ask yes or no questions. It builds vocabulary. I can pull different slides and say, all right, take a look at what this group did, what they asked, and here's some good vocabulary here. So if you log in and then sign in as a guest, it does an example. So the example, once you're able to sign in, you pick a person, and then you can see the yes or no questions that they ask. And so one person picks the person, the other person asks the questions, and by process of elimination and by asking good questions, they can figure out who they picked. So it does lead you through kind of a tutorial, and then it has you play a game by matching you up with someone in the class. Now, I know I'm not supposed to leave the podium, but I'm going to walk around briefly in case you need help logging in. All right, so most people were looking at the practice round. So right now, if you there's a button on top that says skip the practice round. Once you hit that, then it's going to load the investigation that I chose ahead of time. And what it does is it matches you up with someone in the room. Okay, so it'll match you up with someone in the room, and one of the players will choose one of the shapes, and the other player has to ask yes or no questions. And that's the hard part. The question has to be yes or no, and that's what students forget. So yes or no questions, and then by process of elimination, you are going to guess your partner's shape. Okay, so again, I'll walk around and see if everyone's able to try this out. So hopefully you're able to see kind of one thing that we do in the classroom. But yeah, the math department's been using it a lot, so it's been really great having these in class, I think, for the students and engaging them. So thank you for the grant.
Thank you, Tina. At this time, I am so pleased to see many administrators here this evening. May I please invite the administrators, school board members, central office folks to please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much for attending. Becca is our next presenter from the high school. And I asked her what was the most surprising thing about her grant. And she smiled and said, that we got it. But this is a reading grant, leveled literacy instruction for struggling readers at the high school. And that is no small task. Please.
I'm working on it. Okay. PowerPoint's loading. Yeah, it's just such a reward as a teacher to feel like we have the opportunity to, it feels like such a gift to get something new and exciting and effective. And my PowerPoint, if it loads, I kind of became passionate about reading almost on accident because I was blessed to participate in the K-12 reading endorsement that our district offered a few school years ago. And so out of that, I realized I was the only secondary teacher in the program, and I realized how little we know about what to do with teenagers who are still labeled as struggling readers because, we don't want to give up on them, but then by the time you get to 9th grade, everyone's more focused on, we need you to get credits, you need to graduate. There's these more urgent concerns than maybe becoming a lifelong reader. And so one of the most amazing parts about the grant that I received is books that students actually really enjoy reading. It's cool because there's vertical alignment. A lot of the teachers that I met in the reading program are teachers in our elementary schools in St. Louis Park, and so they are the ones who introduced me to this program and really recommended it. So let's see. Okay. So there's a picture up there. I mean, if you've been in an elementary school in our district, some of our reading specialists use this already, but there's a teal kit, which is levels U through Z, which offers books that are like relevant, engaging, and brief, which is the best thing that you can find when you're working with a teenager that hates reading or is a reluctant reader or whatever, because a lot of times, like, I can find a cool book, a really good book, but if it's super long, it just feels defeating, or, a lot of what is considered a classic, even though we can work on changing that, isn't really that engaging. And like, I studied literature in college, so I'm naturally like more interested in plugging through it, but a lot of our students aren't. And so I'm just being aware of that. I don't know if, oh, no. I'll hold some up and I'll bring some around to some tables. But I brought a few of the books, and it's such a great selection of nonfiction and fiction. And the authors that they have that come in, they do such a good job of including characters of color. Oh, sure, here. Characters of color that experience like real important things in life. They're making real decisions, they're experiencing real conflict. There's a lot of plot that's engaging. A lot of times what's great is we could read a book in one class period, and it feels like such an accomplishment to finish a story and then move on, and the next day we'll always kind of go back and discuss it to kind of just build on that memory. But the students just really, at first they were like, these are kind of small, Miss Noble. And I was like, yeah, but the purpose is like, we are going to read so much, and we're going to read a variety of genres. There's not, like in the worst case, you don't like a book, we're on to something new the next day. And so there's something for everyone. The other cool thing I'll just point out is I was able to use an iPad app to monitor and track everybody's reading level, which was really cool because you can actually record and listen to them reading, and I can mark like the different like substitutions that they make, or when they're stuttering or pausing or substituting words, and then go over that and see some of the data. Oh, real quick, I also want to say, so at the high school level, we have a room downstairs where it's ISS, so this is very sad, but in school suspension, like students who are sent out of class or for whatever reason are spending time down there with Coach Derek, and he and I have been collaborating this semester. Some of the books that students really loved, I have let him borrow to just have, so that when a student comes, they have something to do for that hour. And it's been kind of cool to hear even those stories, because the books are so like relevant and engaging that a kid who's been sent out of a class will read it. That's pretty high praise for a book. So I put a few little student testimonies. My favorite parts were just, it's so great to watch the growth. As a teacher, you know, one of the hard things is realizing that part of my job is planting seeds, and then I don't always get to see the fully developed, like, you know, and sometimes students don't get there until after high school, after college, but I saw growth all the time in them. Growth in confidence with reading out loud, asking questions, like not being afraid to just be like, what is happening in this text? So exposure to new genres, learning a lot of Latin and Greek roots that are included into the stories, confidence to then carry over in other classes, to not be afraid to read aloud. I just felt like I got really high praise from everybody who chose to participate in these groups. And at the high school level, like, that was important to me. If you're a teenager and you're still being like pointed out as someone who struggles with reading, that you felt welcomed to join and get support. And I marketed it much more as like, hey, you're a 9th grader, we're going through high school. If you have questions with reading, like, you need a space to be able to ask that and be vulnerable and grow, so that you don't have to, you know, like, grades tie into it so much. So that tension carries through. It's really nice to be able to see them every day and work with them. So, I'm getting the sign. Okay. So anyways, I'm just really grateful for these books. I feel like, you know, and even for me, some of them, you know, they're not my favorite, but you read it, there's so many. I just brought like 6 of maybe hundreds. So it's been cool to see. And then they, you know, they apply to some of the other content that they're learning in other classes. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
And Becca really navigated some brand new territory in terms of developing these ideas at the high school with this particular literacy endeavor, and we really appreciate that. And our next presenter will be from the high school, Jessica Gust, and she got a science project. And we had done a science project last year as well for the high school, and they had gotten some scales that made a tremendous difference in their science class. Well, this particular science one is IB Sports, Exercise, and Health Science, Human Performance. So if you want your blood pressure. But we welcome Jessica.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to prop this up here. I hope that's okay. So this course is a 3-year-old course at the high school. It was added as a science elective in an attempt to draw in non-traditional IB students. So I think we're all in this room probably pretty familiar with what the traditional IB student looks like at the high school, and we really wanted to draw in some students that wouldn't traditionally select an IB course, but we know are perfectly capable of completing the work in an IB course. So this class is really a biology class at the heart, but it includes things like exercise physiology, anatomy, nutrition, sports psychology, biomechanics, all kinds of really cool things. So in the 3rd year, we've had really good success, but this grant is really, really important for us because IB has very particular expectations for what the students need to be able to do. And this is a little screenshot from what's called the PSOW, which is the grading form that I have to send in to IB for my students. And this little box, my kids are supposed to be able to meet all of these requirements. They're called information and communication technology requirements. So my students are supposed to have exposure to technology in the form of data logging, graph plotting, using spreadsheets, using a database, and using computer models and simulations. So we used to have nothing. We had 0 things to help us with this. So this grant was huge for us. And as a part of the grant, we were able to get 11 full-size iPads. We got super awesome protective cases, so when they get dropped and the kids are carrying around, we don't have shattered screens. We got a whole variety of Bluetooth sensors, and on the table over there, I've set out an example of each one. There's also one attached to this little guy, and we already had this existing thing as part of what our physics department uses. And each of the sensors attaches to this, and it's totally wireless. So you don't have to be connected to the wall. You can take this anywhere. And each lab station fits in that tub back there. So if the kids want to go and do what we call field experiments, where they're tracking kids on the track or in the gym or in the weight room, they can take all of this in their little tub, and it's totally portable. So here's a picture of all the different things that we got. We've got a surface temperature. So this is all you have to do to take your temperature is just put it right on your skin. We've got a heart rate monitor, a blood pressure cuff, 2 different types of respiration monitors, and lung volume is the one right in the middle. So using all of these, we can measure all the stuff that I just said. We can also complete labs in flexible locations, which for a class that's about sports and exercise, being tied to a lab table makes it very unexciting. So the kids are able to take these to their sports practice or over to the ice rink and complete their projects. So as a part of the ICT requirements, where they have to demonstrate that is in a project called an IA, an internal assessment, which is a lab that they design from the start, from scratch. I give them no information. They design the lab, they conduct the lab, they crunch the numbers, they present their data just like a normal scientific study. So this for us has been huge in being able to actually meet those requirements. So here's an example of what the screen capture looks like when you use one of these, and each one shows up differently on the screen with the proper units and stuff, so the kids can just screen grab this graph and pull it and put it right into their lab report. Here's another one. You can do multiple runs, so they could compare people on different trials. And here are some of our students using this equipment. I was telling Lorraine earlier, the funniest thing about this equipment is the kids are so smart. I just opened up the boxes and said, guys, play with it and see what happens. And all of a sudden I saw a kid in the back of the room talking on their phone, and I was like, guys, get off your phone. Come on, you're supposed to be doing this. And they're like, we're on customer support. And I was like, you're not. So I walk back there and I go, put it on speakerphone. And all of a sudden this guy is on there yammering on about the interface and da-da-da. So the kids loved it. They got into it right away. And many of the students used these to complete their projects this year, in addition to the labs that we did in class. So I'll let you read what the kids had to say. Both of these girls are athletes as well, and they really enjoyed having access to this stuff. So in addition to the data logging stuff, we were able to do lots of good, just regular internet research with the iPads as well. All right, so in terms of evidence, we won't have our IB grades back until the middle of the summer, so I can't give you any actual real scientific data right now. But what I can tell you is that the students were significantly more engaged in the process of inquiry when they had these tools to use and they knew that they had access to technology to use to do their experiments. They worked together really well to figure out how this stuff worked, and when they were struggling, they problem solved together. And the scientific evidence I do have is I was able to check all those boxes for them when I turned in their grades, so that they actually are meeting the requirements that IB is asking them to meet. And we'll see how their IA grades come back in July. Thank you guys for your time. Yeah.
You're a Park grad.
I am.
If you don't mind my asking, what class were you?
Oh, just the one with your daughter in it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so very, very much, Jessica. I think I want to go back to high school. My experience at high school, in the last century, was we read a book and maybe did a lab experience once in a while. So this is so exciting to learn about all the engagement. I happen to be in the schools quite frequently as a volunteer, and I see the technology and the resources and the quality of teaching in this district, and it is phenomenal. Our children are fortunate. Our community is fortunate. Now I would like to invite some of my friends up. I say friends because I volunteer in their classroom and have done so for quite a few years. I'd like to welcome the Susan Lindgren second grade team. And first grade. First and second grade. Okay, great. I work in most of their classrooms or have, so if you ever have time to volunteer, it is so rewarding. Great teachers.
Well, thank you for having us here tonight. We want to first of all say thank you so much to the foundation. We put in a grant for a companion to our Making Meaning, and we got Being a Reader, which is a tool that we use for small group instruction. And it has been a wonderful tool for us and the students. It has really streamlined a lot of our instruction and freed up a lot of our mental energy to really focus and individualize for students. And we have a little video clip that we've put together so that you can see everything in action.
Oh, wait. 1 second. Oh, what's going on? Okay. I'm brand new to iMovie, and but wanted to probably make something that was engaging. So here's our trailer, I think. Yep. I just wanna, I don't know how to, oh, escape. There we go.
It was our first attempt at making an iMovie. so.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
We wanted to show the products
Being used.
in action, and so many of those showed the Being a Reader materials that were purchased through the foundation, and the the other activities allow us to really implement this into small group, into our instruction. So
And
it's been fabulous.
We have our testing coming up yet, but we've seen strong growth this year. And our January assessment showed that we're moving on up, and we're hoping that the spring also shows that as well. So it's been a good year, and we are very appreciative. Yes?
So is the reading system being used in all of the first and second grade classes in the building?
In our building.
In our building, yes.
Yeah, and it's a great tool. We had wonderful instruction this year with Jan Richardson and how to implement guided reading, but this has been a tool that we've been able to overlap and use together, and it has great book sets with lots of sight words in it, and it has just really streamlined and made it really fun for us and the kids. All right. Yeah.
So that brings me to ask the question, would be same thing appropriate in all the other buildings?
I think the other buildings would be excited. I know I was.
I think there's interest there, but I know that we were kind of like pilot a little bit, looking
Yeah.
at it a little bit, and just giving it a go, because we knew we already had the making meaning for our whole group instruction. And so this just looked, and we were really working hard at implementing small group instruction over the last few years, like with the first grade task force and the task force that we've been putting together and making outlines and thinking of all the things that we want to implement in our classroom. And this is just like another tool. So it makes the books handy. And so when you saw on the slide, you saw that there was like the Jan Richardson plan and ways of instructing and implementing the instruction. But then there's also this material or tool where you can take some of the things that are already put together in the books that go after each other and implement it into that. So that has been really helpful. Yes?
Something that can be used year after year?
Yes. Yes.
They're all reusable resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're very excited. It's been a wonderful tool.
And we've even been able to share between first and second grade, depending on the students that you have in your class. Renelle needed one of the boxes that my class had already moved past through. And so I'm like, here, you have it for the spring. And, you know, she's still being able to continue on with her highest readers, that they can keep going. And then when they end up in second grade next year, we'll start off where they left off. So.
All right. Thank you.
Wouldn't that make a great presentation at a parent-teacher meeting? Thank you so much. It was awesome. So the district provided them with the main part of the curriculum, and these were supplementary materials that augmented that learning. And they really wanted to go for it. I'm in those rooms. I see it in action. It is so exciting. Thank you for extending yourselves and making this possible. Our next group coming up will be the middle school, and it is also a literacy grant, and that will be with Lisa in just a couple of minutes, but it's a multicultural literature for gifted education. And so this, again, is an extension of a program that they have and enriches that learning environment. And it's so incredibly important to have the multicultural aspects. So we're just getting that booted up now, and I want to welcome Lisa.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, thank you. I want to thank you. We've had so many discussions about multicultural and race within our school district, and I was thinking, how can I bring this to my gifted classroom? And at the same time, I was finishing up another grad degree at UMN, and we were doing multicultural literature. And this table of books I have in the front over there are some of the multiple copies that I did get. As I was thinking about how can we have discussions about race and how it's portrayed in young adult literature, I selected these books recommended by a professor that I read, and we have had amazing, amazing conversations One of our equity coaches happened to be in with the sixth graders, and he said they are so open and they're express their emotions and they really feel. So what I'm going to do is kind of jump ahead to some of the photos and also the presentation. So what I did a book talk, and then they signed up according to the book they wanted. And then they presented, we did small weekly book chats. So I was looking at the district mission statement, preparing all students to contribute to society, and how I could fit that in with my gifted. So we really focused on, okay, let's examine how we feel. What are our thoughts and beliefs? Are we being a window or a mirror into other societies? And I collaborated with the seventh grade teachers who had another project they were working on as a requirement. So I asked my students to go deeper, meet the minimum requirements for seventh grade, but to make their presentations go further. So here we have, these are some sixth graders. They are holding up one of Kwame Alexander's books, and if you're not familiar with him, he writes in prose and it's with sports. So you've got the boys in just like that, and it's a real easy read, and it's really fun. After we finished reading, we did pull in the Chrome cart, and we had them working on presentations. And here they are showing you the books. We did tweet out photos of these on Twitter to the authors to see if we could get a response. This is crossover. It's broken down into quarters and sections. Now, what I really was excited, and I thank you, Sarah, for letting me add this. I had sixth graders present today. They created their own YouTube video, so I want to show you. Echo is actually by Pamela Knows Ryan. There's about 4 stories in it. It's all around World War II in different perspectives. So this is one of the stories. Oh, now it completely went off. There we go. So this was the first chapter of the book Echo, and then it goes into another story which they also created. And this one, the first one was around more of the family was living in Germany, and the boy had a birthmark on the side of his face, and he also happens to be autistic, but it doesn't come out and say that, but he conducts music in his head, and it really led into a discussion about autism as well. Another story that I'm going to show you they did was the Japanese internment camps, and they covered that in a video they created on their own as well. Now, most of them did a Google slideshow. Some did do Prezi. So I just put a few examples to show you really quick how they loved doing this. So this is another, Echo happened to be one of the most popular books, even though when you see the size of it, you'd be surprised. So they put in their title characters and a little bit of the story. They also included the setting, and again, there's so many sub-stories within it, they had to do several. The internal conflict versus the external conflict, and the climax, and then the theme. Really great when you start reading these themes as to what they learned about multicultural things that happen, and reviews. I just want to show you one more, then I'll get to the quotes. Oh, it's hard to pick. Okay. I could sit here and talk all day about these kids. They are fabulous, fabulous kids. Okay. And again, you see the different characters. And in the end, there's a surprise twist that they're all working toward, and they all come together with this something common that happens. So it takes different genres and mixes it up, because first it starts with a fairy tale and some elements of magic, but then it goes into historical fiction. But they all end up being at the same place at Orchestra Hall by the time the book is done, and they don't know that they've all had this harmonica, this magic element following them. I like what she wrote here for theme. The theme is that no matter how dark or hopeless something seems, a better choice will present itself if you persevere. The sentence that represents this theme would be, your fate is not yet sealed. Even in the darkest night, a star will shine, a bell will chime, and a path will be revealed. Then she goes on to talk about, if it seems like it's a hopeless predicament, just know that a new path will soon come to you. So again, with Gifted, I really want to focus on sticking to it, not getting too much anxiety. I'm going to go to the quotes because these are great. I told them I was presenting tonight, and a lot of them wanted to come. They really did. They were pick me. And so I said, well, tell me what you'd like me to say. So these are direct quotes. Helped me to see the world from a different perspective. Showed me how other people live their life in this world. Sometimes you have an image in your head about what characters look like depending on their speech, how they talk, words they say, and phrases they use. That was really evident in Kwame Alexander's books. He doesn't come out and say it's about a black family, so we did talk about why did they assume it was, and there's some really good conversations about that. Sometimes you think a certain way about someone, but they are really very different. Sometimes we don't think we're judging or stereotyping someone, but we are. It helped me see how they saw the world and how their life was, and I compared the differences. And then one said it's easier to look for significant text and quotes in our language and literature class now. And then my Jack, are you ready for this? It widened our spectrum of learning to include more perspectives and to understand why people act based on their problems and backgrounds. 7th grader. So they helped us hear the stories that don't often get talked about out loud and see past the facade people put on in public. It helped us see behind the stereotypes in our culture. It helped us learn what people would do for the things they love. It helped me realize that no matter the beliefs, traditions, or religion of a person, deep down, they're all trying to be happy and make others happy. Everyone has a different background, but they will find themselves in some of the same situations. It was amazing how excited they got about these books, the discussions we had. I had one boy, and this happened to be when the equity coach was in the room. He was so upset because they read one on natives, and he thought reservations still had teepees, and he had no idea. So it really opened up their mind to what is it really like. So I just want to end with my deepest gratitude and sincere thanks. These books have been used with both my 6th and 7th graders. My 8th graders haven't had a chance because we do one grade level at a time. But thank you for recognizing the need of this special population of children. They really do make a difference, and I am so excited and happy that you supported them with this grant.
I think you can easily understand why the foundation is so excited about being able to grant monies that we raise to teachers that have these wonderful ideas, and they just need a little extra help to make it a reality, and astonishingly wonderful results. I also want to take a minute here to thank Sarah, because I would not be able to do this technical part over here. And I also know that we had 2 more principals join us. I saw our middle school principal, and I saw our Aquila principal. So would you just stand and give us a wave? Everybody else stood before. Les and Clarence, great to see you here tonight. We are now going to have our final presentation of the evening, and this is a grant at Peter Hobart School, and it has to do with reading literacy, and it's literacy engagement through technology. And Emily Crook will be here this evening to share that with us. And I want to remind you that what the foundation funds, we have 4 strategic goals. 1, reading, language arts, literacy. 2, math and science. 3, the arts in the wide definition. And the 4th is transitions between schools or between grades or programs. So teachers are always welcome to visit our webpage and to look at these short video clips that we have of there of past projects and to download an application to write a grant. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's short, 1 page. Emily, please.
First, I'd like to just introduce some students from class. This is Kelvin, Nolan, and Eric. And so they're going to help me present a little bit about how we've used technology to engage in our reading. I'm on TV. Okay. This has changed actually over the past year because I went from teaching 4th grade into 5th grade. And so it started through our PLCs, our professional learning communities, in 4th grade. And we were looking at our data, and there was predictable outcomes for our students of color. And as I was looking, and they were performing significantly lower than our white students. And I was looking at the data, and when, where do I see that within my classroom? And it's time on text. That's one of the things that I noticed. And I also noticed this, students are engaged in technology. And so why not merge everything together? And I had my own iPad, and I went on to Hennepin County Library using my card and had a book, and they could listen to it on audio. And so this is kind of how it went on. And so then in moving into 5th grade, we were able to get 12 iPads and dispersed it through the entire 5th grade classrooms. I had 4 in the other classrooms, had 3, and 4. I'm not math right now, so whatever that comes out to for 12. Anyways, again, so the why was we wanted to interrupt predictable outcomes in our reading data and to increase student engagement in reading. So this aligns with our St. Louis Park mission, where the highest level of achievement, multiple pathways to excellence, safe and nurturing environment, and it also aligns with our instruction, as well as the foundations of enhancing learning for all students. And this is where I was noticing too that many of my students of color were reading books that were not developmentally appropriate. And to engage in discourse with their peers, you could see that interaction already showing the predictable outcomes. And so I wanted students to be in the same text, not reading, maybe it could be echo and then hop on pop. That's not what I would like to see in the classroom. I want all students to be achieving at a high level, and they will all be reading echo. And so that is what we wanted to do. And so 5th grade decided that we wanted to really get student voice. So we had a pre-survey. So we asked the students to tell us a little bit about how they felt about reading text, chapter books. And as you can see, 22% of our 5th grade classrooms believe that they're a good reader. And 66% or 67%, they don't really know. And 11% say that they don't believe that they are a good reader. And then it goes on to say, like, do you enjoy reading? This is a little bit of what we do in the classroom. So you can see students either reading in pairs, they're reading independently, but also we had a couple different apps where they could access Newsela and look up current events using read theory to practice some test-taking skills, as well as Epic. And so all students had the opportunity to be exposed to the same text. And this is where I would like some of my students to really share a little bit about what it might look like in the classroom. So Calvin and Eric, do you wanna? Calvin, loud and proud, I want you to tell a little bit about what it might look like and stuff. So you and Eric are in a group together.
Yep.
Okay, why don't you come on in here? I'll hold this up for you.
Okay. Like, we're reading a book called The Westing Game. And, like, so what we do, we, like, read a book and then write what we, like, questions and what happened.
And so what happens when you, like, what's the process? So it's time for reading, and then you guys work in collaborative groups, and
Like, one person gets the iPad ready, and then another person grabs a splitter.
and then what happens? How do you like know who's going to talk and stuff like that, or what happens after you read a chapter?
Like, we talk about it.
Yeah. So we have one discussion leader, and the discussion leader would pick one person first to answer a question that the discussion leader has made up. And then we would go around in a circle to answer this question.
And then just to add on, this group did that on their own. So all of a sudden, I'm with a small group, and this was also part of it. I wanted to be in small group and have students be able to actively engage in text. And so they're listening to a book on audio and reading it at the same time. And so I'm hearing these noises in the back, right? And I'm annoyed. And then I look over and I'm like, shh. And then they go, well, we're talking about the text. Oh, continue. Okay. And then I go over and I ask, like, tell me more about what's happening. And they pretty much say the same thing. Well, we've decided that we have a leader. And so after every chapter, we're going to talk about one thing that we learned. And I'm going, oh, continue on. And so that is, so that was something that organically happened, and it was due to being able to all of them use the splitter to engage in the text and have it being read to them. Nolan, do you want to share a little bit too?
I made microphone. One way the iPads help us with audiobooks, if one kid doesn't understand how, like, they're reading a book and they don't understand how to pronounce a word or say a word, they could either ask their group or the audiobook would pronounce it for them. So then they would understand the word from their group and the audiobook.
Do you guys like the Westing game?
Yeah, we haven't finished it yet, but we're enjoying it.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys do if you don't know what the meaning of a word?
I would discuss it as a group.
Okay.
Or like ask the group.
Or what?
Ask the group.
Ask the group, right?
Or search in the dictionary, or make like predictions. I'm pretty sure we do.
And I think right here, I just wanted to show, after they've read a book on audiobook, we asked them to, and this is for the whole grade level, ask them to respond to the same questions. Are you a good reader? And as you can see, there's a significant increase. So 63% of students in 5th grade believe that they're a good reader. And as well as an increase in if they enjoy reading. And I have the pre-survey results right next to it. So you see an increase in engagement, as well as self-confidence too. So, yeah.
And of the 37% that said they're bad readers, how many of them are just, how many of them are bad readers? I don't know.
Well, and what I think is really profound is that after using audiobooks, 37% said that they still don't know. Still don't know, and so we no longer have kids that don't believe that they are good readers. Yep. And then I've been fortunate to have, again, the kids, again, from 4th to 5th grade. And so here are my scores. And so, and this is my students of color. And so, as you can see, last year, before implementation, from fall to winter, only 22% made growth, and that's not good. And so, and then this year, there was an increase up to 60% of my students of color made growth in their typical growth scores. So there's still work that needs to be done in my classroom as it relates to reading, and this is just one tool that will get me to be able to teach more effectively to all students. And then again, here are just what students have said. So in that post survey, in addition to what Nolan was talking about, this is their words. Because I learn words that I don't know. They're easy for me and fun. I understand the text better. The reason why I like reading on audiobooks is because if I don't know a word or understand the book, then it could read it to me and then I understand better. It's easier to pronounce words, understand words. And I think that that's also a common theme, is the idea of like vocabulary acquisition. And so it is really, clearly, that's what they have to say about using the iPads. So, and I guess the last one is I love it. And so just thank you to the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation for giving my classroom the opportunity to have this type of technology available to them. And help them build their confidence, not only just in my classroom, but along 5th grade. And as well as to the district for helping getting the iPads all situated and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you to Emily. Did you see how confident those young men were? They could adjust the microphone, they could talk right into it, and they knew what they wanted to say. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much, Peter Hobart. I have just a few concluding remarks. I want everyone to be aware that we have a web page, the St. Louis Park Public Schools Foundation. And on there is a special little place for donations. So if you wanted to recognize someone for a birthday, you could make a gift to the foundation. If you wanted to recognize perhaps someone that has passed on, you could make a donation. If it's the holidays, or if you just feel you'd like to contribute. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I also want you to be aware of our wonderful newsletter. This has been done by members of our board, past members, Joni Brinkman and Mim Cagle. They work with the high school students, and it's the students that call up and interview people and then develop this marvelous, marvelous newsletter. I also want to again thank David. His profile has been very low tonight, and he was kind enough to let me do this one last time. But David has taken over all the responsibilities for the granting, and he was the planner behind communicating with all of you and providing the celebration. And the celebration is really in honor of the amazing, dedicated teachers that we have. So I would like all of our teachers to stand, and we're going to do a round of applause. You know, and those presentations don't get made up in 5 minutes. So we appreciate it, and I hope that you will have an ability to share them at your faculty meetings. Then I have a couple of little things to end with. One is we would like to send the balloons home with you. We would like to keep the weights. I have a scissor, and I can cut them off, and those of you that have children or just a balloon makes you happy, please take one. And then, you know, it's so hard to find good help, and we just don't have any wait staff this evening. So on your way out, if you could deposit your paper plates and so on up here, that would be greatly appreciated. And then just one final word, and that is, I hope you can stay, teachers. I know it's really late in a full day, but if you could just stay for a few minutes, and I think maybe our board members and prospective board members might like to visit with you for just a moment. So again, I want to recognize our foundation board. They each have unique talents and unique contributions that they make so that it's possible to have a granting program. So I want to thank all my board members present and past and future. With that, I say good night.